What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Yesterday was Thanksgiving, and if you celebrate it, hopefully you had a great time, got to eat some good food, play some video games, spend some time with the family, and maybe if you were brave enough, go out later on that night and pick up some games or get some shopping done in general. I ended up going online, picking up some stuff for the backlog, and starting to fill that out a bit more, of course. What else do you do when things like Steam sales are going on? You see other games at like Best Buy and Walmart and other places that are like 75% off. Generally start stacking that backlog. Today, though, we still have a bunch of stuff to go over because things still happened yesterday. We did hear a bit more about the Sonic redesign for the movie and why it happened and kind of who made it happen. It's such a strange story. It won't make sense to any of us, the people who wanted to see the movie, because it's like obvious, but we'll go over that. And then also Capcom has some unannounced games apparently that they're going to be demoing in, less than a month now, which means we should hear something from them about some games that we don't know about yet. As always, guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure to like button. It does help out, and get subscribed so you can stay up to date on all the gaming news going on in the gaming world. We're going to start today with Jedi Fallen Order. There was even like there was a commercial for it, which is strange because they spoiled a bunch of stuff in the commercial during football yesterday. But it looks like the game has garnered quite a bit of success. So you've seen the sales success. They even announced that it was doing very, very well in the first 2 weeks. Biggest launch for a Star Wars game under kind of EA's publication and development. Well, it looks like Respawn doesn't want to be finished here. In fact, it seems like they want to go a bit further, and talking with an interview with Games Radar saying absolutely we would like to continue this series, and it seems like the sales being what they are, that would only make sense. But the big thing here is it worked this time. Will EA stay out of the way the second time? I'd like to think they will, because not every game needs to be a live service. So eventually you'll have your own live services taking money away from your own live services if you have too many. And I think the Jedi Fallen Order series can kind of stay, on its own over here, away from the FIFAs and everything else they jam microtransactions into. I think it makes a lot of sense to keep it there, and it is a really good showpiece to show Disney that you can create these games really, really well. Let Respawn continue. It seems like they're interested. It's kind of going to be up to EA, though. Also, we had just talked about the other day with Phil Spencer saying that nobody wants VR, right? Well, we also, of course, had Half-Life Alyx announced, which is a VR-only game, at least at this time. Who knows what happens in the future, but it's a VR-only game, which you would assume would drive traffic to VR headsets, but it did. Yeah, this is maybe a little surprising, but the Valve's own Index headset sold out. Well, at least if you go to order it, it won't be delivered to you before the 25th of December, it appears. And this is all reported by Road to VR, who found that, yes, Half-Life Alyx appears to have sold out Index headsets just straight up because of the hype behind it. And this is, again, kind of what VR needed. I know Phil Spencer saying that it's niche technically is correct still, but if there are not any big flagship games like these, it'll stay niche forever. Like, it won't ever really pick up and gain some momentum going forward in the marketplace. That's what you need. You need big time exclusives that have big time names attached to them, and having something like Half-Life attached to a VR game will do it. So it's going to be, I think, very, very interesting to see the sales for Half-Life Alyx when it comes out, because the only people who are going to be buying it are going to be VR headset owners or people who play VR at least fairly consistently. I mean, you'll have some newcomers, of course, try it out, but when we get those sales numbers, then if they're not great or they're poor, or that will still continue to reinforce the idea of VR still being a small market, but at least we're getting some games like Half-Life Alyx to push it forward. Oh, and if you were someone who liked My Hero, One's Justice, the first one, the second one, of course, we know about, that is actually coming out March 12th. This is in Japan so far. However, I would expect a worldwide release around that time. They even had this page here that leaked out from the Japanese magazine that also confirms Sir Night-Eye, who, if you're watching the series right now, this season, we had him introduced fairly recently, where he can use his power of foresight, and that will somehow work into the gameplay, which I'm curious how that's all going to work out. They also talk about story modes for different characters being built in as well, and it does kind of look like, from what we're seeing, that it's still going to be similar to the first one, but if they continue building on it, maybe they could eventually get to the point where it is, I think, a more solid game overall. But hey, My Hero fans, look out for this. March 12th, like I said, right now in Japan, but I would expect a worldwide release probably around that time, maybe even announced in a week or so. And guys, some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start talking about Capcom. Because Capcom, of course, is going to be at Jump Festa 2020. That's December 21st to the 22nd. They have 4 different demo units that they're going to have set up. So just like demo kiosks, TVs with systems hooked up where you can walk up and play. So everything there seems to be playable. The only interesting thing about this is there are only 2 that have been unveiled so far. And this is according to a magazine leak, once again, from Shonen Jump, that talks about there being 2 that have not been announced yet. Basically placeholders. The other 2 will be Mega Man Zero ZX Collection and Monster Hunter World Iceborne. So basically between now and December 21st, you would assume even before that, because I don't think they're going to announce it at this event. I think they'll just have them set up, playable, and ready to go ahead of time with it unveiled. So they'll have everything kind of set up on their, their advertisements walking in. It seems like the only place that I could think about would be the Game Awards, at least for one of them. Now, they do have 2. A lot of people are thinking it's a possibility that one of them could be the Street Fighter, they announced more Street Fighter 5 stuff. It could be something around that. I think it's like another Championship Edition or something. Street Fighter's kind of got away from me at this point with all of the stuff they've done with it, but one could be Street Fighter. That's very possible. But what's the other one? Because we've talked about rumors around a Resident Evil 3 remake, right? That's very possible. That could be there, of course. But what else could it be? Could it be a Mega Man X9? I've talked about that a lot as well, because I do think another possibility is that they could have their own live stream to unveil a game, right? We talk about 2 games that are unannounced currently that would be shown here. They could do their own event like they did with Mega Man before, where they showed off Mega Man 11. It is possible, okay, I'm gonna say possible, that they do their own live stream for a game and then they also unveil one at the Game Awards. The other interesting thing is that Jeff Keighley is all over the place liking tweets and stuff about Capcom's unannounced games, and it does make you wonder, oh, okay, so would it be shocking to see something like a Resident Evil 3 remake being announced at the Game Awards? I don't think it would be shocking. I think that's like a great spot for it because Resident Evil 2, right, is in the Game of the Year nomination right now, so it already is on the big stage. And oh yeah, the same people who made that game that's being voted on right now for Game of the Year, because critics all voted it in as a nomination, we're making another one, Resident Evil 3. So you want to check that out as well. And again, Mega Man X9, you could also go back and grab some remakes, remasters from their past as well. It could be a new fighting game that they unveil. It's a lot of stuff could be here, and we're just basically taking shots in the dark to figure it out. The only one that I can tell you is possible is, again, Resident Evil 3 remake. I'm crossing my fingers for something like a Mega Man X9, but I know that's probably unlikely for something like this. But let me know what you guys think Capcom could unveil at Jump Festa 2020. Either way, if they really do wait until like the last minute to unveil it, just keep an eye out for Jump Festa December 21st to the 22nd. I will be as well, so if you miss it, just make sure you stay tuned in here and we'll see what they have for us. Next up, let's talk about that Sonic movie redesign, because remember when they showed the original one, we all looked at that and said, what happened? Like, why? Why does it look that way? We couldn't figure it out. It made no sense to us. And then we figured, oh, probably the production company that came up with everything, and then they came up with a design and told the people actually creating the movie, directing it, like, this is what you have to work with, right? Because no way I thought that like Sega would okay that design, and it was pretty clear something happened internally because they delayed the entire movie and they show up with a much better looking Sonic design. Well, here's the backstory apparently. This is tweeted out by Tails Channels, the Sonic the Hedgehog news and updates, saying, major Sonic movie redesign details from the Schneider interview. Paramount pushed for a realistic Sonic. They knew fans wouldn't like it, but believe it was going to be generally accepted. Facing backlash, a meeting with Sega was held and they decided to delay. I don't get it. Paramount somehow looked at that and said, well, the fans won't like it, but the public will. Like, what? Like, how did that happen? Like, they knew fans wouldn't like that design, but they figured that people who aren't fans of Sonic would? Because if you look at the new redesign, it's I think everybody likes the new redesign more. Even if you're not a fan of Sonic, if they put both of them in front of you, most people are going to pick the new one that, looks like Sonic. Because even if you're not a fan, you do have some... Sonic is a very big character, right? A lot of people will recognize Sonic if you hold him up in front of someone. They'll say, oh, that's Sonic, right? It's not necessarily Mickey Mouse or Mario status, but or Pikachu, but it's still up there, right? I would say I think a lot of people know who Sonic is, or at least what he looks like. But the original design, not so much. It is interesting to hear that Sega kind of worked their way in and said, hold on, there's too much backlash. You're hurting, I think, their IP. That might be what they're looking at that like, this isn't going to work. We got to change it. Because remember, they brought in some artists and people who were very familiar with Sonic to get this thing done. People who worked on Sonic Mania, right, and done tons of artwork for it, come in, make a way better redesign. I just can't believe that. It really is amazing that places like Paramount are so out of touch, or they just think they know what they're doing and they clearly don't. Because these are people getting paid, millions of dollars in some cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars at least, to make these decisions, and it's just like, what were they thinking? Either way, good job to Sega for coming in saying, nope, we gotta fix this, and we're delaying the whole thing to do it. And I think the movie, while it's not gonna be like winning Oscars or anything, but at least it was designed correctly, right, with the redesign for fans who will actually go out and see it. Like, I don't know how many people in the general audience are gonna be flocking to the movie, but at least it looks a bit better for fans. So if you were someone that was asking for this redesign, right, or did not like the original one, make sure you go out and see it, because it seems like Sega really went to bat for all the fans here. Next up, let's talk about Codemasters and Slightly Mad Studios, because Codemasters actually bought them. It was a little surprising, I'll admit. They bought them for about $30 million. GameIndustry.biz reported on this one. And when I read that, I said, good. I feel like that's a good thing. Of course, Slightly Mad Studios makes Project Cars or Project Cars 2, and Project Cars is a game that has a following, but I do see quite a few people talk about glitches and issues. Basically, it's like Project Cars is so close, but they can't seem to get everything right all at once, and that's kind of put some people off with the series, whereas Codemasters, of course, creates some games that people really, really like, whether it's Grid, although the most recent Grid is still kind of mid for a lot of people, but like Dirt, people really like Dirt. But Codemasters buying Slightly Mad Studios brings up the biggest issue ever. What happens to the Mad Box? Yeah, do you remember that thing, the Mad Box, where they were going to create this terrible looking system? They were serious about it. Apparently they were full speed ahead, and it turned out it was most likely a publicity stunt that wasn't really going to go anywhere. And now I'm curious what Codemasters will do with some of the properties with Slightly Mad Studios. What happens to Mad Studios now? Do they kind of still stay as their entity, their studio, or does Codemasters kind of like absorb them completely and just bring their developers in with their Codemasters? I don't know how any of that's going to actually shake out, but hey, Codemasters picking them up, it's obvious Codemasters at least knows how to create these type of games, and maybe they can bring Project Cars in the correct direction, or who knows, maybe fans don't like what they come up with next with Project Cars 3, but it looks like at this time you'll see those IPs at least under the Codemasters name. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Microsoft and the Xbox Scarlett. We are working up to its unveiling, I guess, February. I don't think they'll wait all the way till E3 to talk about it completely. Hold their own event just to get us kind of up to speed on it, and then drop things like the pricing and the release date and games, of course, at E3. But I think there's still quite a bit more information we need so that we don't have to try to absorb all of it at once in like a 2-hour presentation that they have to cut like half an hour just for Xbox Scarlett and the rest for games at E3. But Matt Booty was talking in an interview about their strategy going into next generation. They seem to have two different pillars that they're trying to set this generation on. The first one being backwards compatibility. So in their mind, they want you to be able to play everything that's on the Xbox One now on the Xbox Scarlett, and then also going back generations. So any original Xbox game, any 360 game that's already backwards compatible, all of that stuff just work on the Xbox Scarlett. And I think that's obviously a good thing, because even if you've bought your stuff digitally, you still want it to work on the Xbox Scarlett. And in some ways, it's already happened on the Xbox One for things that you bought on the 360 that became backwards compatible. All of a sudden, you just download them on the Xbox One. That's something we're still waiting to hear 100% from Sony, whether like PS1, PS2, and PS3 will work. PS4 sounds like it's going to work, but that is one big leg up that Microsoft and Matt Booty is talking about. The other one is that because they have so many studios, they want to try to have a game out every 3 to 4 months rather than have like 1 or 2 games a year, right? Just have several games coming out pretty consistently. And that is a good strategy, but they also have to keep in mind that development does take quite a while at times. And if you want that big time blockbuster hit, it might take 4 years to make it. So I hope that what they've done is they've picked up studios with some in mind to have kind of quick turnaround games and others having more of a long burn. Like the Initiative, I assume that is a 3 to 4 year project that we will find out later on in the Scarlett's life. Maybe it's something they show us right away, but it doesn't come out for a little while. But I think that's a good strategy going forward. Make sure we have plenty of games on launch day, and then make sure we have plenty of games to look forward to. I think that's much better in terms of value proposition at launch than, well, they had a Kinect at Xbox One's launch. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Sebastian saying, some game streamers have heart rate monitoring for giggles. Maybe Sony is into that. And, you know, we've heard about sharing and streaming, and obviously there's a trend for all of that right now, right? That's what a lot of people like to do, is stream games and try to figure out different ways to make, I guess, just a lot of information on screen all at once. And there, obviously, people have done that with heart rate monitors, like you said, but what if, like, the PlayStation could figure all of that out based on just the controller you're holding and put up all kinds of stats? Like, this is how sweaty the person is, right? This is what their heart rate is right now playing this horror game. There's a lot of things they could do. It might be a little more information than most viewers need, but, I mean, you could do it, I guess. I don't know. It would be really funny to see Sony say, hey, you can tell the people in your stream how sweaty your hands are. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit the like button, it really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it's Capcom and these unannounced games. What do you think they're gonna show at Jump Festa 2020 later on in December? And do you think the Game Awards is where they're going to show one or even both of those games? And then also, what about the Sonic redesign? It sounds obvious to us, but Paramount couldn't figure it out. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.